The sky over the Hindu Kush is no longer just a barrier of rock and ice, but a corridor for drones and ballistic retaliation. In a sharp escalation of hostilities, Pakistan recently launched a series of bombing raids targeting Kabul, Kandahar, and Paktika, claiming to have neutralized over 200 militant fighters. This surge in kinetic activity marks a transition from diplomatic friction to what experts describe as an open war along the 2,600-kilometer border. While Islamabad asserts these strikes are surgical responses to unprovoked Afghan attacks, the Taliban government in Kabul views them as a violation of sovereignty, responding with their own drone incursions into Pakistani military garrisons like Abbottabad. The stakes are immediate. The collapse of a fragile security architecture that has governed the region for decades, now replaced by direct state-on-state fire. The blueprint for this conflict was drafted in 1893 by Sir Mortimer Durand. The Durand Line was established to define the spheres of influence between British India and the Emirate of Afghanistan, with 800 miles demarcated by 1896 based on watershed ridgelines. However, this colonial-era boundary was never fully accepted by successive Afghan regimes, who viewed it as a forced imposition that split the Pashtun heartland. Historically, the border remained porous, managed through tribal understanding rather than rigid enforcement. Today, the precursor to the current violence lies in the 1921 final demarcation and the subsequent 1947 partition of India, which left Pakistan inheriting a border that its neighbor refuses to recognize as a permanent international frontier. What was once a buffer zone for the British Empire has become a geopolitical fault line. The current conflict is defined by three distinct components: the TTP, ISISK, and a massive technological imbalance. The Tehreek-i-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, which Islamabad labels Fitna al-Khawarij, operates from Afghan sanctuaries, launching suicide missions and bombings within Pakistan. Complicating this is the presence of ISISK, an Islamic State affiliate that views the Taliban as ideological rivals. While Pakistan possesses a conventional military advantage with advanced aircraft, tanks, and a massive defense industry, the Taliban uses equipment left behind by NATO forces and specializes in the unconventional guerrilla warfare that exhausted the U.S. military for 20 years. Pakistan is currently moving to fortify the border with physical fencing and electronic surveillance, a multi-billion-dollar project aimed at ending the era of the open frontier. The conflict presents a clash of two rational but incompatible objectives. On one side, Pakistan's leadership views cross-border counterterrorism as an existential necessity. Their objective is to force the Afghan Taliban to neutralize TTP hideouts, believing that without military pressure, the domestic bombing campaign in Pakistan will never end. They argue that state sovereignty is contingent on a government's ability to prevent its soil from being used for exportable terror. On the opposing side, the Afghan Taliban views Pakistan's strikes as an illegal violation of territorial integrity. Their primary concern is internal stability. They predict that if they aggressively target the TTP at Pakistan's behest, those fighters will defect to ISISK, creating a much more dangerous internal insurgency within Afghanistan. For them, maintaining the loyalty of militant affiliates is a matter of regime survival. Looking forward, the regional dynamic is shifting toward three logical developments. First, a pivot to third-party mediation is already underway, with Qatar and Turkey attempting to facilitate talks in Doha and Istanbul to prevent a total diplomatic collapse. Second, expect an increase in localized economic warfare, as Pakistan leverages trade transit routes to pressure the landlocked Afghan economy. Finally, the shift from ground skirmishes to long-range drone strikes suggests that the border will become increasingly high-tech and automated, with both sides investing in unmanned aerial systems to conduct deniable operations. As the 2025 to 2026 period progresses, the Durand Line will likely transform from a porous tribal zone into one of the most heavily monitored and volatile militarized borders in the world.